Anonymous exposes all of George Soros' bought men in Congress. Now see how he plans to take down Trump soon. Billionaire globalist financier George Soros' MoveOn.org has been revealed to be a driving force behind the organizing of nationwide protests against the election of Donald Trump, exposing the protests to largely be an organized, top-down operation, and not an organic movement of concerned Americans taking to the streets as reported by the mainstream media. Wednesday saw protests in the streets of at least 10 major U.S. cities: Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Boston, Washington, D.C., Portland, St. Paul, Minnesota, Seattle, and several other cities saw protests, according to USA Today. In light of the protests and rioting that have transpired since the election of Trump, a closer analysis of the dynamic at play is warranted to gauge whether it's an organic grassroots movement, or something much more organized, sophisticated and potentially dangerous. Soros-affiliated organization MoveOn.org released the following press release yesterday afternoon. Americans to come together in hundreds peaceful gatherings of solidarity, resistance, and resolve following election results. Hundreds of Americans, dozens of organizations to gather peacefully outside the White House and in cities and towns nationwide to take a continued stand against misogyny, racism, Islamophobia, and xenophobia. Tonight, thousands of Americans will come together at hundreds of peaceful gatherings in cities and towns across the nation, including outside the White House, following the results of Tuesday's presidential election. The gatherings, organized by MoveOn.org and allies, will affirm a continued rejection of Donald Trump's bigotry, xenophobia, Islamophobia, and misogyny and demonstrate our resolve to fight together for the America we still believe is possible. Within 2 hours of the call to action, MoveOn members had created more than 200 gatherings nationwide, with the number continuing to grow on Wednesday afternoon. Now come reports from various protest locations that reveal a substantially coordinated effort, and not the organic grassroots showing by concerned Americans, as the mainstream media is reporting. Photos from Austin, Texas reveal a line of buses the protesters arrived in, making their appearance seem substantially less than organic, with a direct implication of being strategically orchestrated. This is a disaster. We fought our hearts out to avert this reality. But now it's here, MoveOn.org staff wrote to members on Wednesday. The new president-elect and many of his most prominent supporters have targeted, demeaned, and threatened millions of us and millions of our friends, family, and loved ones. Both chambers of Congress remain in Republican hands. We are entering an era of profound and unprecedented challenge, a time of danger for our communities and our country. In this moment, we have to take care of ourselves, our families, and our friends, especially those of us who are on the front lines facing hate, including Latinos, women, immigrants, refugees, black people, Muslims, LGBT Americans, and so many others. And we need to make it clear that we will continue to stand together. Perhaps the most absurd part of the protests is that President-elect Trump hasn't made a single policy decision yet, and, in fact, the entire section of his website regarding banning Muslims was scrubbed shortly after his election. This denotes that anything said during the campaign was most likely simple election campaign rhetoric and subsequent framing of said rhetoric by the opposition. The left-wing organization is one of a number of progressive organizations affiliated with Soros Open Society Foundation. Soros-affiliated organizations across the world are deeply connected to various color revolutions, the Arab Spring, and a number of other political uprisings across the globe. Meanwhile, according to a report in New Eastern Outlook, the totality of what is revealed in the 3 hacked documents show that Soros is effectively the puppet master pulling most of the strings in Kiev. Soros Foundation's Ukraine branch, International Renaissance Foundation, IRF, has been involved in Ukraine since 1989. His ERF doled out more than $100 million to Ukrainian ghosts 2 years before the fall of the Soviet Union, creating the preconditions for Ukraine's independence from Russia in 1991. Soros also admitted to financing the 2013 to 2014 Maidan Square protests that brought the current government into power. Soros foundations were also deeply involved in the 2004 Orange Revolution that brought the corrupt but pro-NATO Viktor Yushchenko into power with his American wife who had been in the US State Department. In 2004, just weeks after Soros' International Renaissance Foundation had succeeded in getting Viktor Yushchenko as president of Ukraine, Michael McFaul wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post. McFaul, a specialist in organizing color revolutions, who later became US ambassador to Russia, revealed, "Did Americans meddle in the internal affairs of Ukraine? Yes. The American agents of influence would prefer different language to describe their activities: democratic assistance, democracy promotion, civil society support, etc. But their work, however labeled, seeks to influence political change in Ukraine." Anyone familiar with the history of the Soros Open Society foundations in Eastern Europe and around the world since the late 1980s, will know that his supposedly philanthropic democracy-building projects in Poland, Russia, or Ukraine in the 1990s allowed Soros the businessman to literally plunder the former communist country's wealth, according to the New Eastern Outlook. During the 2016 presidential cycle, Soros committed $25 million to the 2016 campaign of Hillary Clinton. Per the standard Clinton operating procedure, this was indicative of the symbiotic relationship of favors between the billionaire and his array of political puppets across the globe. As a testament to the power wielded by Soros, contained within WikiLeaks' recent release of hacked DNC emails, is a message from billionaire globalist financier George Soros to Hillary Clinton while she was U.S. Secretary of State, that clearly reveals Clinton as a Soros puppet. Found within the WikiLeaks Hillary Clinton email archive is an email with the subject "Unrest in Albania," in which Soros makes clear to Clinton that two things need to be done urgently. He then directs the Secretary of State to bring the full weight of the international community to bear on Prime Minister Berisha and appoint a senior European official as mediator. Revealing the influence he wields within the corridors of power, Soros then provides Secretary of State Clinton with 3 names from which to choose. Unsurprisingly, Clinton acquiesced and chose one of the officials recommended by Soros, Miroslav Lajčák. Make no mistake that the events you're seeing transpire nationwide are being orchestrated in part by a billionaire political elite class that is looking to subvert the will of the American people by attempting to foment a new American revolution. Soros' formula has been duplicated in numerous nations, and it looks as if he now has the US in his sights as the next target. Please share this critically important story in hope of waking people up to the globalist agenda at work here in America. Thanks, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe.